Press the Let's Go Live button. Hopefully the tubes connect before the clock changes so that we're not late and the thing. But it looks like that everything is connecting and things are probably working soon, which is great news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we're talking about PsyOps. That's right, from the Pentagon, our own government, involved in psychological warfare operations, engaging in Twitter. We're going to be diving directly into Twitter Files 8. You can see that drop today from Lee Fang. And so he's a journalist, a reporter over for The Independent. And so we're going to see what he has to say for us. Not a giant Twitter Files, but it is a part 8, and it involves the Pentagon. It shows how Twitter, which was supposed to be this bastion of free speech, supposed to be this entity that was protecting all of us against misinformation, separating us from the government, making sure that we could hold them to account, and so on. Remember all those platitudes that they always rambled on about in front of a bunch of Congress people? Well, it turns out they were actually working with the Pentagon, working directly with the military, and creating white lists for propaganda accounts that were being run by the government. So this story is just more and more painful as the days go by. We're on Twitter Files 8. We'll go through all of it in detail. It just dropped, and so we'll go through it together. Now, after that, we are going to give some updates on Kari Lake and her trial, because she's scheduled for trial tomorrow and Thursday, and there's a ton of activity. I mean, just a ton of this. So I have a couple clips. I don't think we're going to play the actual video clips here today. This was from the hearing yesterday. And so we'll sort of do that offline in our after parties or whatnot. But there's still a lot to get to, because we'll take a look at the docket. Trial scheduled for tomorrow. The two people who really don't want to testify filed emergency motions to quash their subpoenas. Trial coming up. Kari Lake wants to interview them and depose them, right? Ask them questions on the record so that we can get evidence, and they don't want to show up. We've got two motions to quash those subpoenas. One from the governor-elect, Katie Hobbs, who is filing another request. Remember, they've both been ordered to be here. Stephen Richer is the other gentleman who created a super PAC, was involved in a super PAC or a local political action committee that was created specifically to operate against Kari Lake. He also does not want to be questioned at trial, and so he just flew to Panama. He just left the country, and so apparently he's down there tomorrow, very conveniently the day of trial. So we'll take a look at both of those. We also have the Under Advisement Ruling that came out from the court yesterday, and we'll go through that. Now, Kari Lake is moving forward on trial on 2 counts. The others got dismissed. We'll see which ones stand out, which one she's moving forward on, and then we'll actually, for the after party, for sort of the free speech platforms, we'll preview some of the arguments that we saw yesterday, right? Yesterday, the arguments were about stopping the motion to dismiss. So I expect to see a lot of the same arguments that survived the dismissals, right? There were several charges. Complaint had 8. There were, I think, 6 of them that were ultimately dismissed. So they'll move forward on the 2 that were not dismissed, and we can preview some of those arguments after the program on the free speech platforms. And so, as you can see, my friends, woo, boy, oh boy, we've got a lot to get to today. And so we're going to, of course, always check in with our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you'd like to join us over there, that's the greatest place to support the show. We have an amazing crew over there. And let's give some shout outs over on the chat. Let's see. Bonnie Speck. Bonnie's in the house. JC, the Music Man. John McGarvey. We see, well, they're chatting away right there. You see Vientikis is in the house. He's talking about Congress. And we'll take comments over there all at our after party. And so come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Reading V's comment. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Congress is allowed to propagandize us. Yeah. Doesn't make it feel any better. But at least it's there. Vientikis provided the citation. They're allowed to propagandize us, you know. What a ridiculous country. Thank you, V, for that. It is ridiculous. I know. All right, so let's get this puppy queued up and just get right into it, because, boy, Twitter Files 8, we weren't expecting this. We had Twitter Files 7 yesterday, and, boy, to get a couple back-to-back What a treat. All right, so now that we're queued up, let's get right to it. Twitter Files 8 revealed. This drop provided to us by Lee Fang, a writer over for The Independent. And he has some pretty interesting news. If it didn't feel like you were living in a PsyOp up until this moment, many of us thought, oh, COVID, yeah, and most of the news that we see feels like it's sort of highly curated and crafted to get us to do certain things. But if it wasn't that feeling for you, after today's show, congratulations, it should hit hard because the evidence is resounding. In Twitter Files 8, Lee Fang is going to guide us through the full story. He tells us in his first tweet, Twitter Files Part 8, How Twitter Quietly Aided the Pentagon's Covert Online PsyOp Campaign. Okay. So the Pentagon has a covert online PsyOp campaign? Okay. All right, well, I thought Twitter wasn't supposed to be involved in that stuff, but all right, apparently they are. Despite promises to shut down covert state-run propaganda networks, Twitter documents that Lee Fang got access to shows that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military and their influence operations. Cool. All right, so Lee Fang, who is Lee Fang? As you can see, he is an investigative journalist. He's over at The Intercept. And he's available on Signal and other locations, so be sure to follow him. Fang reports, he says, Twitter has claimed for years that they make concerted efforts to detect and thwart government-backed platform manipulation. We are going to be a check on the government. We're going to be speaking truth to power. We're not going to be the manipulators, no. Here is Twitter testifying to Congress about its pledge to rapidly identify and shut down state-backed covert information operations and deceptive propaganda. Not on our platform, said Jack Dorsey and Gouveia. So when they were in front of Congress and there was a bunch of, useless Congress people sitting in those round tables up high on their benches, looking down upon the peasants who were coming into their court, they are, of course, bringing in the Twitter executives because the people, you and I, are all upset about Twitter censoring the hell out of everybody. And so we complain to our Congress people and they say, gosh, the people out there are a little upset. Maybe we should do something about this. Oh, yeah, you're right. Let's haul in Mark Zuckerberg. Let's haul in Jack Dorsey. Let's bring in Sundar, and we'll ask him a bunch of questions and see how they answer. Meanwhile, they don't know anything about Twitter. They've never done a tweet. They have 35 people that smash their heads together to come up with one Hillary tweet, and it's a very complicated thing that is just completely over their heads. So when the Twitter executives come in, they read from their pre-arranged script, as you see here. They say, okay, loser Congress people. We're on paragraph C now. See if you can follow along in your provided notes. State-backed information operations. So this is somebody, Jack Dorsey or somebody. They say this. Combating attempts to interfere in conversations on Twitter. Congress people, it remains a top priority for the company here. And we continue to invest heavily in our detection, our disruption, and transparency efforts related to state-backed information operations. They say our goal is to remove bad faith actors. Not you guys, though. You guys are all cool up there. You're all good. I'm not talking about you. Other bad faith actors, let me clarify that. And to advance public understanding of these critical topics. And all the idiot congressmen are like, oh, yeah, sounds good. So Twitter defines state-backed information operations. Let's see if our own government falls into this category as coordinated platform manipulation efforts. Okay, coordinated platform manipulation efforts that can be attributed with a high degree of confidence to state-affiliated actors. You mean like the FBI? Whoa, yeah. State-backed information operations are typically associated with misleading, deceptive, and spammy behavior. These behaviors differentiate coordinated manipulative behavior from legitimate speech on behalf of individuals and political parties. So Twitter is, just pontificating to these congresspeople. He says, whenever we identify inauthentic activity on Twitter that meets our definition of an information operation and which we are able to confidently attribute to actors associated with the government, we share comprehensive data about this activity. We give you everything that we see, Congress. Very cooperative. Very nice. Fortunately, all of that is inapplicable to our own government. We see the story continues from Mr. Fang. He writes, while they're lying to Congress through their teeth about this, behind the scenes, Twitter gave approval and special protection to the U.S. military's online psychological influence operations. Despite knowledge that Pentagon propaganda accounts use covert identities, Twitter did not suspend many of these accounts for 2 years or more. Some of them remain active to this day. But they just told Congress that they got rid of that stuff. Oh yeah, only when it's other governments. In 2017, the U.S. Central Command, called CENTCOM, an official sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts. Said, quote, we use to amplify certain messages. So a U.S. official has a whole batch of bot-ish accounts. The official asked for priority service for 6 accounts, verification for 1, and a whitelist for the others. So this is an email sent over July 26, 2017. A lot of this stuff took place right after Trump won. They were very upset. They needed to build a whole slew of infrastructure to make sure that didn't happen again. So on Wednesday, July 26, somebody named Nathaniel Kaler over at CENTCOM, he has a mail.mil email address from to somebody at Twitter, email address redacted. So Nathaniel says, okay, thanks, Twitter person. Sure is tough to do web ops when you can't tweet, exclamation point. Very friendly and jovial. I use the exclamation point regularly. That's how I know. He says, I've attached a list from Nathan at the U.S. government. He says, I've attached a list, Mr. Twitter person. The first 6 on the list are priority accounts. Ideally, we could have them verified. So just bypass them and give them your blue check mark, whatever you guys call yourselves. And can you also whitelist them? He says in parentheses, if there is such a thing, question mark. It's kind of like God mode. Can you give them like admin root access so they can just do whatever they want? They can spam, they can do misinformation, disinformation. There are accounts. So can you just whitelist them? He says one of them, Yemen Current, is not currently indexing, right? So if you go on Twitter and you try to find at Yemen Current back in 2017, apparently you can't find that person. And the government's like, yo, he's one of ours. So turn him on. We want him spreading this propaganda hard and fast. So turn his booty back on your Twitter. They also say at justice_AR is currently has a request for verification, but he hasn't heard anything back. So because he's one of our propaganda voice boxes, can you make sure he gets that blue check mark, please? The agent from the government says the rest are accounts that we use to amplify certain messages. Oh, that sounds like spammy bots that are inauthentic. Didn't Twitter just say to Congress that they didn't allow that crap on their platform? Oh, that's weird, because the U.S. government is telling them directly that they're doing that on their platform. All right. So they say, well, we use these accounts to amplify certain messages. Ideally, if we're just asking for the whole story here, ideally, they could be whitelisted as well. Just kind of give us everything. Is that okay? If I'm going to ask for 1, can I ask for 35 of them? Again, if it's too big of an ask, the first 6 are the priority. All right. And if you need any sort of paperwork, like any legal documents, because of the fact that we're the government, or verification from our office or SOCOM or whatever, just please let me know. It doesn't matter what you need. I'll just get it for you because this is what we want. And then in the last little bit where they cut it off there, they say at the bottom, also, our SOCOM guys mentioned that they'd love to be able to meet up and come for a face-to-face talk. If you think the right Twitter folks would be up for it. See that down there at the bottom? Yeah, we just love to get out, have a beer or two, go out, have a hot dog, whatever. Have a nice leisurely conversation about psychological operations conducted by the military in conjunction with Twitter. Now, the same day that CENTCOM sent that list of 52 additional accounts, and they're all listed here. Li Fang has the full list of the accounts. If you click over to his article, he shares the full list. Not that important, so we'll fast forward through it. But there is a list of 52 accounts. Now, the same day that CENTCOM sent that list and say, hey, these are our buddies. Can you put them on the VIP list so they don't have to wait in line? Twitter officials used a tool to grant a special called whitelist tag. Basically, gives the US government bot accounts, or whatever they are, their assets, provides verification status to the accounts without the blue check, meaning that they're exempt from spam, abuse, and other flags that would limit their account, and they're more likely to trend on hashtags. All right, so they're not going to stop them from misinformation or disinformation, which Lord knows our government is mostly that, as far as I can tell. But they're also going to increase their visibility. So they'll suppress a private citizen for making a joke. They'll censor a private person for expressing an unpopular opinion. But if it's US government propaganda, not only will they allow you to spread whatever the heck they want as a whitelist, bypassing all of the other rules, but it will also trend and actually amplify them. Amazing. Man, it's good to be at the FBI. You can see why Yoel Roth was so excited and giddy every time he had meetings with DHS. Fang continues. He says the CENTCOM accounts on the list tweeted frequently about U.S. military priorities in the Middle East, including promoting anti-Iran messages, promotion of the Saudi Arabia U.S.-backed war in Yemen, and accurate U.S. drone strikes that claim to only hit terrorists and not blow up families and cars after they botched the Afghanistan withdrawal, which resulted in the death of Americans as well. So these are the types of accounts that you see. And it is probably just completely fake. I don't know. I don't speak Arabic. But evidently, this is probably a nice person, young man out here who is saying, oh, gosh, man, the Americans are great. You know, this war or whatever is great. I love endless wars. Here's another one. 10/18, October 2019, another Arab account. In Arabic, it's like, you know, U.S. fighter planes. Oh, gosh, we love endless war over here. Yes, let's continue this. Let's do another war. U.S. military, Pentagon, whatever. Here's another one. Right, and we don't even know what these accounts are. But Twitter is enabling all of them to move forward. Accurate U.S. drone strikes. Promotion of a U.S. Saudi-backed war. Promoting anti-Iran messages. It is a pure propaganda machine. Okay. Now, Twitter told us, though, that they were going to remove this stuff, but they didn't. They allowed it all. CENTCOM then shifted strategies, and they deleted disclosures of ties to the Twitter accounts. The bios of these accounts changed to seemingly organic profiles. One bio read, the Euphrates Pulse. Another used an apparent deepfake profile pic and claimed to be the source of Iraqi opinion. So these are just fake propaganda profiles run by the U.S. Pentagon. You see this one, and then it looks like it changed. So it goes from fighter jets are awesome, let's nuke our enemies, war on terror forever. Then it goes into, oh, let's just take a peaceful stroll down a river, down the Euphrates River. Gosh, what a beautiful day this is. Also, I have some opinions on American involvement in foreign affairs. If you trust me, I'm just a regular person that just floats around on the boats, you know, enjoying the scenery. And I also happen to love the U.S. military. I think that the American military is great, and we should go and invade Iran also, by the way. I just tweet that randomly, you know, in between my other real profiles. So they're getting smarter. Now, Lee says that one Twitter official who spoke to me said that he feels deceived by the covert shift. Okay, they looked like they were actual military accounts, sort of endorsed. Okay, these are military accounts. These are not sneaky accounts. Then once they got the approval and they can sneak through all the filters, boom, the switch changes and they turn into fake propaganda accounts. Still, many emails from throughout 2020 show that high-level Twitter executives were well aware of the DoD's vast network of fake accounts and covert propaganda, and they did not suspend any of them. Yeah, I wonder how many of these accounts were voting on Elon's poll when he was asking about CEO. How many of these people went and voted on that one from the DoD? How many of their hundreds of thousands or millions of accounts do they control? Now, for example, says Lee, Twitter lawyer Jim Baker The same guy who used to work at the FBI, the same guy who met with Michael Sussman and was too stupid to realize what was going on there was criminal and played it on anyways, and then got excommunicated from the FBI to go work at the extension of the FBI, which now is, as we learned, Twitter. He was musing back in July. He was now at Twitter, 2020. He says about an upcoming DOD meeting that the Pentagon used, quote, poor tradecraft in setting up its network. And they were seeking strategies for not exposing the accounts that are linked to each other or to the DOD or to the US government. Yeah, because the other intelligence agencies are out there and they're monitoring all this stuff, right? They're responding to all of this. And the DOD doesn't want them to identify that these are actually their accounts, right? These are like assets. You know, in the CIA spy movies, when everybody's running around, it's like, protect your asset. No, I disavow the asset, right? Whatever, convert the asset. These are just profiles. You don't even need the person anymore. You just create a fake profile. And so the DOD does not want to be exposed and show that they've got this gigantic network that they're using for propaganda operations. Makes sense. Now, Lee says that a lawyer at Twitter, her name is Stacia Cardile, she replied that the Pentagon wanted a skiff and that they may want to retroactively classify its social media activities to obfuscate their activity in the space, and that this may represent an overclassification to avoid embarrassment. Here's the email from Stacia, July 8th, 2020. Election's coming up, 11:30 a.m. From Stacia to Angela and to Jim Baker, working at Twitter. Email comes out from Stacia. It says, Jim, Angela, and I discussed attendance at this classified briefing. I heard from Facebook that they are securing skiffs in D.C. and San Francisco for a meeting, possibly on Friday. I have some significant concerns that the motivations for classifications are slightly different than the ones you outlined in the email below. I think it's possible the DOD is using retroactive classification to obfuscate, to cover up their activity in this space. Angela and I think you would be more effective in this meeting than me, as the officials will view you more seriously. So the email is going to Jim. Jim, Angela and I discussed at this meeting. Can you step in for me? By the way, you used to work at the FBI, don't you? Are those your buddies? Like, don't you pal around with them? So they'll take you more seriously than me. Jim's like, yeah, perfect. That's why I'm here. Of course, is just to be the person who catches the ball. Whatever the FBI needs, whatever the intelligence community needs, I've got it. I am your bag man, is what Jim Baker was. Thoughts on this? Stacia says, and separate and apart from the merits, I also have some concerns with attending due to COVID and my 2 immune-compromised family members. So it's another reason why not to go to the meeting. And yeah, that's July 2020. Everybody still is running around like COVID's going to murder you. So she's still freaked out about it. Jim, he's like, I'd love to work with the FBI and the DOD and everybody over there. That's my forte. That's why we're here. I mean, I'm already getting them what they need anyway. So, all right. And they're just moving forward. In several other 2020 emails, high-level Twitter executives and lawyers, they discussed the covert network. And they even recirculated the 2017 list from CENTCOM, and they shared another list of another 157 undisclosed Pentagon accounts. Again, mostly focused on Middle East military issues. Now, do you think that that's all that they're limited to? Okay, we've seen the pattern here with these Twitter files. What does the DOJ do, or the FBI in this case do? What does the DOD do? Is they just slowly drip this stuff out, right? It's a little nibble. They don't come in and ask for, can you please authorize our 1 million fake Twitter accounts, please, for us? No, they do it. It's 6. It started with 6 in the first email. Just 6. That's it. If 6 is not, we have more. There's 52 of them. If 52 is too much, can you just do the 6? Those are high priority. Then you come back, you ask for more. You take little bites. You don't take the big one first. But then by 2020, everything fast forward. Now they want 157. And these are mostly Middle East and military issues. Do you think the Pentagon doesn't have, I don't know, at least the equivalent of that here for domestic policies? Probably much more than that. Now here, they wouldn't tell that to Twitter. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Lee continues, he says, in a May 2020 email, Twitter's Lisa Roman emailed the DoD with two lists. One list was accounts, quote, previously provided to us, and another list Twitter detected. The accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic on U.S. military issues in Syria and ISIS, and many did not disclose any Pentagon ties. May 14th, email, 2020, 12:07. Lisa Roman sends an email to William and others at twitter.com, BCC. Transmission of Twitter account information. Lisa says, hey, Bill, thank you for your time yesterday. As we discussed, attached is a spreadsheet seen out down there in the Excel file with the accounts that we described on our call. The first tab lists those accounts previously provided to us, and the second tab, associated accounts that Twitter has discovered. Please note that the second tab is not intended to be an exhaustive list, and that if the DoD is aware of additional associated accounts which may violate our rules, those should be included in the scope of our request. I would be grateful if you would confirm receipt and that you are able to access this spreadsheet without issue. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding this information. And so these are conversations about consolidating the bot list, right? Twitter's like, oh man, we've identified, you guys are not really covering your tracks very well. We can tell they're all coming from that one guy down the hall in the corner in his corner office, so separate your IP addresses or whatever, because we found them and we need to corroborate with you what the lists look like so that we don't nuke your accounts. Many of these secretive U.S. military propaganda accounts, despite detection by Twitter as late as 2020, but potentially earlier, probably earlier, continued tweeting throughout the year. Some of them were not suspended until May of 2022 or later, according to records that I reviewed. So the Pentagon is actively just pumping out propaganda through U.S. military accounts regularly. Just started to stop recently, May 2020. In August of 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report exposed a U.S. military covert propaganda network on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other apps using fake news portals and deepfake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries. And they're linking us over to this report. From Graphica, you can see it here. It was published August 24th, 2022. It's a 57-page document. It's from Stanford, so that must mean something. Unheard Voice, they say, evaluating 5 years of pro-Western covert influence operations. They tell us about their methodology. We talk about different regions around the world, Central Asia, Iran, Afghanistan, Middle East. We have an executive summary. They say July and August of this year, 2022, Twitter and Meta, formerly Facebook, removed 2 overlapping sets of accounts for violating their terms of service. Twitter said the accounts fell afoul of its policies for platform manipulation, unauthentic behavior, and so on. After taking down the assets, both platforms provided portions of the activity to Stanford to review. Now, one joint investigation found an interconnected web of accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and 5 other social media platforms that use deceptive tactics to promote pro-Western narratives in the Middle East and Central Asia. The platform's datasets appear to cover a series of covert campaigns over a period of almost 5 years rather than one homogeneous operation. These campaigns consistently advance narratives promoting the interests of the U.S. and its allies while opposing countries like Russia, China, and Iran. They heavily criticized Russia, in particular for the deaths of innocent civilians and atrocities, especially the imperial ambitions following the invasion of Ukraine in February. And to promote this and other narratives, the account sometimes shared news articles from U.S. government-funded media outlets like Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. A portion of the activity is also to stop anti-extremism messaging. Now, as with previous disclosures, Twitter and Meta did not share the technical details of their investigations. Additionally, neither company publicly attributed the activity to any organization. But they did say that the presumptive country of origin was the U.S. and Great Britain. Twitter dataset also provided a bunch of tweets. For this report, we focused our analysis on these things. These consisted of limited cases of content sharing and one Twitter account that posed as an individual in Iraq, but previously claimed to operate it on behalf of the U.S. military. They write, "We believe this activity represents the most extensive case of covert pro-Western I.O. on social media." The report is non-exhaustive, and of course, you can read the rest of it through this link provided by Lee. He says that the U.S. propaganda network that they just uncovered and discussed relentlessly pushed narratives against Russia, China, and others. They accused Iran of threatening Iraq's water security and flooding the country with crystal meth, and of harvesting the organs of Afghan refugees. Lee continues, he says, "The Stanford report that we went through did not identify all of the accounts in the network, but one they did name was the exact same Twitter account that CENTCOM asked for white privileges for in its 2017 email. Lee says, I verified via Twitter's internal tools. The account used an AI-created deep fake image. See a couple graphics here. Figure 48 shows us the profile picture used by the Facebook page discoverer and two other assets in the Middle East group. Issues with the left ear and central alignment of the eyes suggest it was generated using artificial intelligence techniques. Looks pretty dang good to me. Can you tell that's an AI image? It's pretty good. I don't know. We have another one. This is the profile picture, figure 47. Left, archived version of the Discoverer Twitter account with an Arabic language bio claiming an affiliation with CENTCOM. The right, the same account shortly before it was suspended by Twitter. Okay, so in other words, the US DoD is just changing these accounts. It was a US DoD account that was promoting CENTCOM, unaffiliated with CENTCOM. Then it turns into this random dude who is just, loves American war. In subsequent reporting, Twitter was cast as an unbiased hero for removing, quote, a network of fake user accounts promoting pro-Western policy positions. Media covering the story described Twitter as evenly applying its policies and proactive in suspending the DoD network. So the media, right, they play patty cake with Twitter all the time. Like they exist for one another, or they used to. Now there's a little bit of friction there because the journalists recognize that they're losing Twitter as the lubricant, as their distribution platform. If the journos can't share their stories, they just live on the New York Times page, which nobody goes to. So they've got to go to Facebook and to TikTok and all of the other distribution platforms. But the distribution platforms with Twitter 1.0 were in cahoots with one another. They loved each other. They were both robbing the country of their free speech and gaining power as a result of it. Just look at all this activity. So they say, media that covered this story, oh no, Twitter is getting rid of the DoD. Twitter's the good guy. The reality is much more murky, says Lee. Twitter actively assisted CENTCOM's network going back to 2017. And as late as 2020, they knew these accounts were covert and designed to deceive and manipulate the public discourse. A violation of Twitter's policies and promises. They waited for years to suspend. They knew it was happening. This, my friends, is fraud. This is a fraudulent operation of their product. When FTX got indicted, when SBF got indicted, it's for defrauding his users of a product. In this case, it's the crypto. He was promising them an asset. He didn't have that available to them. He got prosecuted and charged with crimes for that. Elizabeth Holmes, her promise was amazing blood testing that was going to solve all sorts of problems. She was not able to produce that. She defrauded a bunch of people. She evidently, unless she wins on her appeals, going to prison for 11 years. Twitter defrauded via their failed promise of speech. They said that all of this was secure. They weren't censoring anybody. They certainly weren't working with the government to create propaganda bot networks being run by the DoD. None of that was communicated to us. They said the opposite. They said that nobody was allowed to meddle in any of this stuff over and over and over again. Their product was free speech. Their product was a safe environment. They were lying to every one of their users. And this is not just, defrauding a couple million customers who were customers of FTX, or who were a couple thousand people who were investors in Elizabeth Holmes. This is an entire nation state level of fraud. They defrauded the whole country, arguably the world. They knew what they were doing. They were involved in it, and they lied to all of us about it. Lee says that Twitter's comms team was closely in touch with reporters, working to minimize Twitter's role. When the Washington Post reported on the scandal, Twitter officials congratulated each other because the story didn't even mention them. No Twitter employees, and it focused largely on the Pentagon. As long as they can make everybody else the bad guy, then that's okay. Here are the emails. We see the chain starts at 1:23 p.m. Says, Katie sends an email. Katie Roseborough says, "Hi there. I hope you're well. We wanted to give you a heads up that the Washington Post will be publishing a piece, most likely this weekend, that sheds more light on the U.S. government aspects of the recent Graphica Stanford report, the report we just looked at, about tech companies removing U.S.-based influence campaigns." Katie says, "Yeah, it's a story that's mostly focused on the DoD and Facebook. However, there will be a couple lines that reference us alongside Facebook, in that we reached out to them for a meeting. We don't think that they'll tie it to anything Mudge related or name any Twitter employees, and we decline to comment on those. I suspect that this piece will get more attention in Washington with the DoD angle." Katie says, "We'll keep you posted." Rebecca responds at 4:52, takes her a couple hours, and she says, "Ack, A-C-K, ack, ah, thank you." Jim Baker responds, "Got it, thanks." Lauren Culbertson says, "Thanks for the flag, Katie." She's at 5:52. Baker responds at 5:15. Rebecca's first at 4:52. Oh, man. Bummer. This story's coming out. You're kidding me. All that happened in September. Yeah, Twitter's going to be implicated. But Rebecca's got great news. 3 days later at 8:03 p.m., Rebecca Hahn sends an email back over to Katie, copying Lauren, copying Jim, and a bunch of other people, including Yoel Roth at Twitter. Look at all these people. John Hughes is on there, and so on. Thrilled. Privileged and confidential. Follow up on the Graphica Stanford report. 6:29 in the morning. Says, "Hi, folks. Here's the piece, which I think turned out as expected, formatted in a doc here. Thanks." Rebecca responds, "Oh, hey, Katie. Thanks for doing all that you could to manage this one. It didn't seem to get too much traction beyond The Verge, CNN, and WAPO editors promoting. Nice job squashing the story. The conduct," says Lee, "with the U.S. military's covert network stands in stark contrast to how Twitter has boasted previously about rapidly identifying and taking down covert operations accounts, tied back to state influence operations, including countries like Thailand, Russia, Venezuela, and others, going back to 2016. Now, Lee finishes here. It says, "Here is my reported piece with more detail. I was given some access to Twitter for a few days. I signed and agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited." Of course, he's over there at The Intercept. If you want to learn more details about him, you can go check out his work. Go to support Lee Fang and that incredible reporting. Go on over to leefang.substack.com to see what else Lee has to offer for us. And that is the end of the Twitter Files 8 report. While we are here on the day, let's see if Elon has any response. He usually has some comments on these things. Let's see what he has for us. Elon previously was sharing the story from Twitter Files 7. Says the government paid Twitter millions of dollars to censor info from the public. Confirming that for us. And shout out to Quicks with the super chat. He says, "Ack" is maybe not act like "ah." It could be like acknowledged. Very astute observation there, Quicks. Thank you for the super chat and the clarification. I don't talk like that. But maybe they do over there. We have the government paid Twitter millions of dollars to censor information from the public. We covered that yesterday. Elon has a couple things to say. He is tagging outgoing chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, pencil neck watermelon head. He said, hey, Adam, as the outgoing, in parentheses, because you got fired, you're going to be gone out of there soon. Republicans are taking over the House. Says, did you approve hidden state censorship in direct violation of the Constitution of the United States? Adam Schiff. Any thoughts on that, Adam? 50 Shades of Way says, hey, Elon, now that you're in charge, are you willing to make a pledge that Twitter will never accept payment from anyone or government or otherwise to censor or suppress information? Elon says, absolutely, I'll do that. No problem, not even complicated. Elon is also posting about Tesla. He says that old tweets are dead, so some other Twitter changes. Main time should have top latest and top of the last month all time. Ditto for users. Oh, look at this. Mark Andreessen. Oh, he's sharing US code 18241. Love it. Yes, this is the criminal code we've been referencing on this channel for the last several days. And here it is. Deprivation of rights. I think that many people were responsible for that. Elon says, interesting. Perfect. Good. So he's got wind of the statute. All right. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for Twitter Files 8, the PsyOp version that Twitter dropped our direction. And so, of course, we will continue to cover the Twitter Files and the entire saga as it continues to unfold. There will be many more drops. And thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this, for liking this video, and for joining us on the next one. All right, my friends. And so let's move on over. We're going to jump into some Kari Lake activity because the trial is scheduled for tomorrow. And we're not going to be doing, how do I want to do this? We'll save the oral arguments for the after party, but we'll just go through some of the Kari Lake docket in a short minute. But first, let's check in with our friends over at 4Patriots, because I forgot to talk about 4Patriots. Of course, you know, Christmas is coming up. You're probably running out of ideas. You could always get a gift certificate. You're probably not going to get a food supply before the big day, but next year. My friends, a food shortage could be coming. Even in the United States, experts have written about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, even new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriot survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Start building your own stockpile today. That's right, 4patriots.com, a great place to go to make sure that you're prepared with all sorts of nutritious, healthy calories in the event that you need them. But all right, so that, my friends, is our Profit Center, Obscene Profit Center break, as they like to say. But now we're going right into trial prep with Kari Lake. Kari Lake scheduled for trial, and there's going to be some interesting new revelations, but we're going to look at the docket before we see what the judge said in his recent Under Advisement ruling, which actually threw out several different complaint charges brought forward by Kari Lake. It is scheduled for trial on the 21st and the 22nd, and let's see what the docket has for us. If we click over to the clerk of the court website, you can see there's been a lot of activity recently today. Several documents were filed by some of the defendants. One you see here is from Katie Hobbs. The other is on the next page, which is from Stephen Richer, which is the Maricopa County recorder. But take a look at these two motions. You can see they are emergency motions to reconsider the request to quash the subpoena. This is Katie Hobbs asking the court a second time to please allow her to not testify. And it's an emergency. Why? Because trial is scheduled tomorrow. So as you can see, we've got two of these similar requests, motions to quash the warrants from Katie Hobbs and from Stephen Richer. Let's go through them one at a time. You can see here, filed 12/19/2022 from Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs. This is her emergency motion, to reconsider the order denying the motion to quash. This means Kari Lake filed a lawsuit. She is the plaintiff suing Katie Hobbs. She needs Katie Hobbs to come and testify at trial. She got a subpoena that got delivered to Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs wants to quash the subpoena. She filed a request to quash the subpoena. The judge denied it. Said, no, what are you, nuts? You're the Secretary of State. It's your election. You got to be here. So she's filing an emergency for reconsideration. The judge already denied her to do it again because she really, really doesn't want to talk. Defendant Katie Hobbs in her official capacity is here in front of the court now. We are asking the court to reconsider, to please change your opinion. In denying the secretary's first motion, Katie Hobbs's lawyers, they write, the court noted that given the nature of the case, this is the judge speaking, where the questions of fact range from technical minutia to broader issues of election manual interpretation, the judge said the court cannot say that the testimony is completely irrelevant or even marginally relevant. The judge is saying, we kind of need her. I mean, she's the Secretary of State. The court further noted that the subpoena seeks discovery concerning an activity wholly within her wheelhouse, all right? The conduct of the elections. She is the Secretary of State after all. But so that's what the judge said, that why she needs to be there. Well, she's the Secretary of State. She conducts the elections. Kind of relevant. But Hobbs's lawyers, they say. But in an order issued at that same time, right? This is in response to yesterday's order, which dismissed 8 of the 10 counts that Kari Lake brought, which we're going to talk about next. The narrowing of the scope of the 2 remaining counts is going to proceed to trial. And so now that we don't have those other 8 counts, right? What they're saying is Katie Hobbs may have been needed for these 8 counts. But now that 8 of them have been dismissed, the remaining 2, Katie Hobbs is not needed for those. So there's been a substantial change. And so now good cause exists. Now the court can reconsider our prior request. There's been a material change in circumstances now, since 80% of the claims have been dumped. So Hobbs's team, they write, under the motion to dismiss order, only 2 narrow issues will proceed to trial. They write under count 2, to the extent that the plaintiff alleges that a person employed by Maricopa County interfered with the board of director printers in violation of Arizona law, resulting in some number of lost votes for plaintiff, meaning that plaintiff, Kari Lake, is entitled to attempt to prove at trial that 1, a malfeasant person was covered under Arizona law, 2, that the printer malfunctions caused by this individual directly resulted in identifiable lost votes, and 3, that those votes would have affected the outcome of the election. So Kari Lake has to meet all of those things. A malfeasant person, so some sort of error, right, or some sort of negligent, not even negligent, sort of intentional misconduct, malfeasance. 2, printer violations directly resulted in identifiable lost votes. And 3, it affected the outcome of the election. Okay, an extremely tall order. We've covered these standards before when we covered all of the 2020 litigation. Extremely hard. Because they're just going to come out and they're going to just say, I got this box and this box, but not that box. In other words, yes, maybe somebody did something wrong, but it didn't result in identifiable votes. We couldn't see it, and it didn't impact the outcome of the election. How many times did we see didn't impact the outcome of the election? 2 years ago, almost to the day. It's like a broken record here. Count 4. To the extent that the plaintiff can attempt to prove 1, the ability of the employees and the county ballot contractor to add ballots of family members, and the lack of an inbound receipt of delivery form both constitute misconduct. Yes, okay. The lack of an inbound receipt of delivery form both constitute misconduct. Okay. So these are the 2 counts. Hobbs's lawyers, they say, look, all right, Judge, everything else has been resolved. Neither of these 2 counts, neither of these 2 claims from Kari Lake have anything whatsoever, they put an underline on here, to do with the secretary, which is Hobbs, any of her or her office's deputies or responsibilities, or any personal knowledge she may have. Because they're saying, well, she doesn't know anything about printer malfunctions. She doesn't know anything about malfeasant people. She doesn't know anything about votes and how they could have been identified and any of these things. She also doesn't know anything about contractors or about their family members or the lack of a form. Well, we're not responsible for that. We're just the Secretary of State. What's left of count 2 involves specific allegations that a person employed by Maricopa engaged in intentional misconduct. But the secretary has nothing to do with Maricopa County's election day operations. I mean, that is a responsibility of Maricopa County. And what's left of count 4 is no different, as what's left of that deals with specific issues related to the county's ballot contractor and the alleged lack of an inbound form, which is a county form. And they're saying, well, she doesn't run the county. The secretary has nothing to do with the operations of the county's contractor, and certainly has no role in keeping or maintaining inbound receipts on delivery day. So therefore, Judge, they just say, look, though there was no good faith basis for the subpoena to begin with, that you granted, Judge, you idiot, is kind of what that reads like. There is absolutely no good faith basis to require the secretary to testify now, given that 8 of the counts in the motion to dismiss were granted. And to the extent that Kari Lake has any questions that are relevant, and there is simply no way that she could, in parentheses, Kari Lake, the state elections director, has already disclosed as a potential witness who may testify regarding the Arizona Secretary of State's election-related duties and responsibilities and other matters related to the Secretary of State's office relevant to this case. Are they stupid? Who is Kari Lake? She is the state elections director. All right. So if she runs the state elections and their defense here is that Katie Hobbs can't possibly know about anything because she's a state level representative. What they're saying is that Katie Hobbs is too big, right? Her position is too broad. It covers all of Arizona. What they really need is a Maricopa County person, because it's a Maricopa County ballot. It's Maricopa County. They operate the elections here. But then Katie Hobbs, they recommend a state elections director. What? They should be recommending a Maricopa County person as a substitute. Because this person, the state elections director, can testify about Arizona Secretary of State Hobbs's election-related duties relevant to this case. Yeah, I think the judge should deny this. I mean, this is ridiculous because what's happening in Maricopa County is a subset of what's happening in Arizona, right? You don't get to just say you run the whole state elections except that one county. Whatever they do is on their own. So they're trying to be very clever here. We'll see what the judge does. Signed off by Andrew Gouveia, who is the lawyer, along with Sambo Duell from the United States Democracy Center. All of this going over to the Maricopa County Superior Court. Copying Blem Legal, which is the lawyer representing Kari Lake. Oh, look what else you have here. Christina Ford from Elias.law. Oh, and you also see this organization right here. Yeah, Elias Law Group representing Katie Hobbs. I'm so, don't you see this everywhere? Everywhere. They're everywhere. They've infested the election litigation process all over this stinking country. All right, so Emily Krager, the Burgess Law Group, she's also from Maricopa County. Mark Elias and his whole organization, the Democracy Docket, right here. Pro hoc vice, flying in here, skidding in here, waiting to be approved pro hoc vice so that they can come in and join in on the fun. Oh, also Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie. Yeah, Perkins Coie. Yeah, the same Perkins Coie that was involved in the Michael Sussman saga. That's right, Perkins Coie. Michael Sussman, Jim Baker, they're representing Katie Hobbs as well. The DNC, the entire DNC, has come crashing into Arizona. Okay? The whole stinking party is here. Where are the Republicans? Where are they at? Are they anywhere? I don't see them. Is Mitch McConnell sending the RNC in here? Or any of his aides? No, of course not. Now, there's an exhibit that's also attached here. So Katie Hobbs submitted this. They said, below are the witnesses that the defendants may call at an evidentiary hearing. Defendants reserve the right. Kenneth Mayer, expert witness. Ryan Macias, expert witness. Okay. Oh, look, there it is. Christina Ford. So when did this email come in? Very soon, Sunday, December 18th, the Elias Law Group's now on the case. Christina Ford sends the case, the email from the Elias Law Group out of Washington, D.C. All right, there you go. So they're disclosing their witnesses. Now, it's not just Katie Hobbs who does not want to testify. She filed a motion to quash. Emergency, please, please don't make me testify. But you remember Stephen Richer. He's the other guy who used to stand right next to onesie-twosie Bill Gates, who used to say, well, it's total chaos around here, but, it's not that bad as long as we can figure out our onesies and twosies. All right, so Stephen Richer, Maricopa County recorder, also really does not want to testify. In fact, he so badly does not want to testify that he's just out of the country. That's how hard it is. Here's the submission. The motion to quash the subpoena of Stephen Richer, expedited because, boy, this is an election matter that's coming up soon. Kari Lake suing Katie Hobbs out of the Superior Court for Maricopa County. Bunch of people here on the docket. Deputy county attorneys and so on. Stephen Richer has gotten a subpoena to testify at the Kari Lake trial. On December 15th at 2:02 p.m., a process server delivered to the office of Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richer a subpoena. Process servers coming in there. Issued by Kari Lake. The subpoena commands Recorder Richer's attendance to trial starting December 21 and 22, starting 9 a.m. That's tomorrow. But unfortunately, they write, well, because Recorder Richer will be out of the country on a long-planned vacation. I'm sure it was. On December 21st and 22nd. And two other employees of the Maricopa County Recorder's Office are well situated to testify regarding the claims of election duties. And three, because Kari Lake's claims about a violation of the First Amendment are not properly before this court, we move to quash the subpoena. So Stephen Richer is like, man, we're going on vacation. First, being required to appear for the trial will unduly burden Recorder Richer, who is the Maricopa County Recorder. Kind of a big deal. They say that beginning the week of December 19th, Recorder Richer will be out of the country on a long-planned family vacation. So he's already left. And he's already out of the country, man. So he left on a long-planned family vacation. And if it's his first in a long time also. It's his first vacation since taking office in January 2021. Okay, well, I guess in that case, the guy hasn't been on vacation since January of last year. Wow, so really hardship. So yeah, okay. Now the judge is going to be moved by this. Recorder Richer is going to have limited internet access while outside the United States. It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for him to testify remotely on this matter. No internet wherever he's going as well. Now, even if Recorder were available to testify, which he's not because he's not even here, he left. Under the Apex doctrine, they say he should not be required to appear to testify anyways, because other county employees can just, tell the story for him. They're better situated. Neither the Arizona Supreme Court nor the Arizona Court of Appeals is yet to consider whether to adopt this doctrine in Arizona. However, this court may consider these cases as persuasive. They say federal courts have regularly held that elected top-level government officials don't need to testify. And they say that Kari Lake's complaint and some of these things are within the purview of the recorder. But like all other defendants here, they say that the complaint should be dismissed anyways. So for the foregoing reasons, they ask that the court should enter an order quashing the subpoena as to Stephen Richer, because he's going to be on vacation. And he's not even in the country anymore. And there's no internet there because he is going to places where there's no internet. And am I making this up? Did he say he was going to Panama? Where did I see that? I thought I saw that somewhere. Maybe it's outside of this document. Anyways, he's out of the country. They don't even have the internet wherever he's going. I don't know exactly where he's going, but there's not even any internet. That's how far out of the country he's going. Okay, so almost impossible to get him to testify, and we'll see what the judge does about that. Now, the judge will issue rulings on those motions to quash. The judge already issued a ruling for an under advisement decision that he was going to make. Yesterday, there were a whole slew of oral arguments. We'll play some of these videos when we're off of the censorship platforms. But there are oral arguments that took place. We saw that Kari Lake's lawyer made some three, I think, pretty interesting arguments. One, he said that there was a secret censorship operation, which was obviously happening. That's on Twitter. He also included a bit about saying that there was evidence of intentionality, right? If there were printer problems that happened, it is likely that they were intentional. But the problem statement that I think that you two might have a problem with is when he says what that means, what the conclusions are. And so we'll save that for the after party or for another segment. But this is the under advisement ruling. Okay, after there were oral arguments that took place, and the judge took the matter under advisement, issued a ruling. We already talked previously about I forgot. This is where the Panama thing is. Okay, so before we move on to that, this is the declaration of Stephen Richer. This is what I screwed up. Yeah. So Stephen Richer says, I am the Maricopa County Recorder, right? So he submits that motion to quash. This is where we get more details. I make this declaration in support of my motion to quash the subpoena. This declaration is based on my personal knowledge. He says, I'm a Republican. I was first elected November 2020. I won this office by earning more votes than other people, and I took office January 4th. At 2:02 on Thursday the 15th, I got a subpoena to attend a hearing. But beginning of this week, December 19th, I will be in Panama. Do they not have the internet down there in Panama? I thought it was Panama. I'm pretty sure they have the internet down there. I would guess that they do. He says, my wife and I scheduled our trip, our vacation, many weeks ago. Many weeks ago. Huh. Well, that doesn't sound like that long planned to me. Because the election was many weeks ago. It is the first vacation that I have taken since I took office 2 years ago. Poor guy. Both by reputation and analysis, other people have said that I am one of the most present elected officials in Arizona. Look at Dylan Rosenblatt. He wrote an article for me on his Substack where he says that Maricopa County Recorder Stephen Richer badge scan shows that he goes to the office a lot. He might live there. As noted in Rosenblatt's article, I have averaged 6 days and 60 hours a week in the office since January. Yeah, well, hard worker. Now, while in Panama, I will have limited access to the internet, and it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for me to testify remotely in this matter on December 21 or December 22. Oh, they have no internet in Panama, and he's just not going to be able to make it work. Basically impossible. Yeah. Yeah, these are the guys who were in charge. I declare on a penalty of perjury under the laws of Arizona, the following is true. Signed, Stephen Richer, who can't get on the internet in Panama. All right. So this is the order. This is the final order that came out yesterday. The judge said that after the hearing with Kari Lake, he was going to be taking the matter under advisement. The order was filed 12/19 at 6:30 p.m. It is Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs. You can see this is the under advisement ruling. So Judge Thompson listened to all of the evidence that was presented yesterday and decided I needed to think about this for a little bit, did that, and issued a ruling. Judge Thompson says, after considering the filings and the arguments of the parties and considering all of the facts and drawing reasonable inferences in a light most favorable to the non-movement, in that case it would be Kari Lake, the court finds as follows. So remember, at this stage, Kari Lake, Maricopa County Board of Directors, and others were filing a request to dismiss the case. So when there's an active request for dismissal, the law likes to presume that the non-moving party, the people opposing the dismissal, we look at the facts. If we have questions about the facts, is this true or is that true? Is this true or is that true? We don't know. And they're going to make a decision on that right after the trial, because that's when evidence is presented. So if there are questions on those things, what we do is we give the benefit of the doubt to the non-moving party. In this case, we're going to look at all the facts in a light most reasonable to Kari Lake. And if she fails on all of them, then we have to dismiss the case. Because even if we give her the benefit of every doubt at trial and she still loses, then we've got to dismiss it. That's not what happened here. Background. The judge writes, contestant Kari Lake initiated this election contest, filed her complaint and a special action, named Katie Hobbs as a defendant, and many others, including the Maricopa County defendants. We know these as Onesie Twosie Bill Gates. We know it as Stephen Richer, the Super PAC, and many others. On December 5th, Secretary of State Katie Hobbs published the official canvass for her own election, identifying 1.27 million votes for Kari Lake, 1.28 million votes for Katie Hobbs. Now, pending before this court are 3 motions to dismiss, all submitted by the defendants. The court heard oral arguments and pending motions on the 19th. They give us some discussion. They say that a court must apply all reasonable presumptions in favor of the validity of an election. Honest mistakes or mere omissions are not enough. An election challenger is required to structure her verified statement in conformity with the rules. And so the judge goes through each count, one by one. Kari Lake's first claim was about a violation of free speech. Says that they failed to protect free speech. They say that there are 2 acts of censorship of certain social media posts. And this ties directly back to the Twitter files. Kari Lake complains. She says that evidently Secretary Hobbs and Stephen Richer, they submitted certain media posts to CISA and through their election misinformation reporting portal, the recorder's presentation to CISA and others about election misinfo. Okay, they're asking for censorship. They're probably communicating with people like Yoel Roth. Now, it says it's unclear after briefing what legal argument Kari Lake is attempting to make. The judge says that this claim is going to fail because there's no state action, which I disagree with. First Amendment restrains the government. Okay, so it's a whole First Amendment analysis. In conclusion, the judge says this must be dismissed, right? These are these constitutional claims, I think, are long shots because the judges are just not, they don't entertain them. They want to see more factual approaches. Like, what is this judge going to do? Is he going to order action taken against CISA and the entire national security apparatus, the entire intelligence community? No. So the judge is just going to get rid of that. Now, locally, we have another issue. Illegal tabulator configurations. The judge analyzes count 2, the complaint. Kari Lake says that the ballot-on-demand printers that malfunctioned were not certified, that they've got vulnerabilities. There's a declaration attached. Kari Lake alleges separately that the printers malfunctioned because of intentional action. Plaintiff alleges that these combine to provide grounds for setting aside the results. The judge is saying, here's what I think Kari Lake is arguing. 1, the printers lacking certification was misconduct by some responsible official. And 2, someone did something to the printers to cause them to misprint ballots. Now, the former issue, like they just lack certification, is not enough, because it's kind of an absence of something. But going further, arguing that the printers failed because of some intentional involvement is enough. The judge says, while the court finds that Kari Lake does not state a claim under the first provision, the court finds that she does state a claim under the second. Viewing the complaint from Kari Lake in a light most favorable to Kari Lake, it says Kari specifically alleges that a person employed by Maricopa County interfered with the printers in violation of Arizona law, resulting in some number of lost votes for the plaintiff. Therefore, that's enough to get her over the line. Kari Lake is entitled to attempt to prove at trial that all of those other 3 things mattered. There was a malfeasant person, checkbox 1. That malfeasant person caused malfunctions, checkbox 2, that identified lost votes. And number 3, the votes affected the outcome of the election. All of that will be debated at trial, and that will stand at trial. Those are the elements that Kari Lake has to prove. So enough to close the margin. They've got to come up with an individual, okay? Identify somebody. Somebody, like a name. And that the malfunctions were malfeasant, right? That person did it. It wasn't an accident. Kari Lake tried to cite Hunt, but nevertheless has alleged that intentional misconduct is sufficient to move that part past this dismissal. The judge says the court takes no position as to the evidentiary weight that's going to come out at trial, but the evidence is not before the court at this current motion to dismiss stage. And so this will move forward. Defendant's motions are denied as to count 2 as narrowed above. All right, so really tighten that up. Now, the next charge, the next complaint that Kari Lake proffers is invalid signatures on the mail-in ballots. The judge says that Kari Lake next argues that the methodology used by Maricopa County is out of the law, doesn't comply with statutes. The defendants claim that that is not so. Considering Kari Lake's delay, Kari Lake makes much of a report from Mark Brnovich. He wrote out a general saying the signature verification program in Arizona is problematic. Yeah, and so in other words, this is too late. To the extent she relies on a review of 2020 ballots, the report that she relies on here is in June. It's months before the instant election, so she can't rely on that. So count 3 goes away. Now, count 4, I think, is a very interesting claim, and this one we can play a clip of. Let's play this clip. I think this is the one.
Talk about the chaos on Election Day, Your Honor, and the evidence that we have put forward to support intentionality. We have introduced the expert sworn declaration of Clay Parikh. Clay Parikh is not just any cyber expert. Among other things, he spent 8 years being retained by the voting system testing lab, the Pro VNV, that certified these machines for Maricopa County and many others around the country. He knows these machines. He's a top cyber expert who has been at the highest levels of the government working on cyber systems. He knows the rules, what EAC certification requires. He understands these machines. He knows systems. And he has given a sworn declaration that goes in detail how Maricopa County violated their own set procedures, both in terms of the pre-testing to ensure that the debacle that happened on November 8th doesn't occur. He has gone through the procedures that are supposed to happen if there's any issue on Election Day. He has interviewed the T-techs and the other technicians that Maricopa County hired on a temporary basis. And as he said, you don't get, whether it's 70 vote centers or 132, as we said, you do not get that system-wide failure without intentionality.
So they are saying that the setting change was so massive, right, that it had to be an intentional setting change. It wasn't like just an accident. So you can see that was about intentionality. I think he talks here about a little bit about chain of custody. Let's listen to this one.
A repeated issue for the county. They're on notice of these. And these are mandatory requirements by statute under 16621E. The county is required to maintain chain of custody every step of the way with the ballots. And it's a criminal violation not to do it. That's how serious chain of custody is. It's not some ministerial act. The EAC says that it is the chain of custody is one of the most critical features to ensure the integrity of the election. And what defendants ignored in our complaint is that on November 8th, if the chain of custody procedures had been followed, Maricopa County should have had an exact count of the number of ballots that they had. That's the process that the law mandates. On November 9th, they reported the amount of ballots that they had. On November 10th, mysteriously, 25,000 extra ballots appeared.
Yeah, and so chain of custody, as you heard from that beginning phrase, he says that is a huge part of this analysis, which is absolutely right. The analogy that we can carry over from criminal law is if you get stopped for a DUI, for example, there's many times a DUI case involves, 4 or 5 officers. When you involve the crime lab, it involves many other people. But in some situations, you might have one traffic officer who conducts the traffic stop, another person who comes and does the DUI investigation, another person who's the phlebotomist who draws the blood, another person who transports the blood, another person, or you get the picture. Now, the problem here is if you draw blood from a person and it goes from Officer A to Officer B to Officer C, Officer A is the phlebotomist, draws the blood, gives it to Officer B, who transports the blood. Officer B gives it to Officer C, who impounds the blood. What happens if Officer B goes away? Is the blood still reliable? Can you still rely on that as a valid sample? No, you can't. Why? Because you can't talk about Officer B. You can't confront him. You can't ask him what he did with that blood when it was in his possession. Did he literally swap the samples? Did he put the blood sample in a microwave? What did he do? Did he contaminate it somehow? There's a million things that could be problematic here. He could relabel the whole vial and just swap the whole thing out, right? We don't know. So the question becomes, if in criminal law, that would invalidate the entire blood draw, right? That entire bit of evidence would be thrown out. Why wouldn't that also happen in an election? In a situation where somebody's transporting the ballots from A to B to C, and we don't know what happened with B. Feels like it might be a pretty big problem. The judge tends to agree. The judge says that count 4, ballot chain of custody, is a big issue. Kari Lake says that violations of the county election manual pertaining to chain of custody constitute misconduct under the law. Kari argues that 1, the ability of employees of the county's ballot contractor to add the ballots of family members, and 2, the lack of an inbound delivery form both constitute misconduct. This is an allegation to complaints, in addition to complaints, about the handling of the ballots in the 2020 election. In addition to the complaints. So they're not using them, right? The other one up here is where they were trying to use those, and the judge said no to those. The election about the prior election has no bearing on this. The court does not consider them, right? So the judge is specifically excluding any 2020 stuff. Kari Lake alleges that of some number of ballots were added by Runbeck employees to the total in violation of the law. Kari Lake also says that the lack of a delivery form were violations of state law that permitted an indeterminate number of votes to be added to official results, constituting misconduct. The court, drawing inferences in a light most favorable to Kari Lake, as it must at this stage, finds that Kari Lake has stated a claim of misconduct by a person under control that affected the canvass under the law. Now, they say that laches applies. However, they say that laches do not apply to contests arising from a violation of election day procedures as a result, as opposed to challenging the procedures themselves. All right. So, in other words, laches say you can't file a lawsuit to change the rules after the rules were used. But if you lose the game, you can't go back and change the rules. But if you lose the game because there was a violation of the rules, well, you can challenge that. The state is sort of misconstruing what laches are. The judge is calling them on that. So it says that the government disputes the lack of compliance with the chain of custody laws, and they claim that Kari Lake has misunderstood the forms required. But the judge says, as presented, whether the county complied with its own manual and applicable statutes is a dispute of fact rather than one of law. And so this is true as to whether such lack compliance, whether it was intentional or whether it did, in fact, change the outcome. So the judge is saying, we need to hear more about this, right? What is the actual evidence? And then the judge will make a decision after that time. Now, all of the other counts were dismissed. So count 5, equal protection, and count 6, due process. Kari Lake said that there was intentional discrimination. Doorbell rang. So we're doing a quick pause. It's Christmas time. I have to get the package. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in 30 seconds. All right, it's here. We got it. Yay. All right, so we're going to carry on. It wasn't the FBI. I get a little nervous. It was actually the package. And we're back. All right, so now we can carry on. The other counts were ultimately also dismissed. So you can see counts 5 and 6. Kari Lake was making the argument that there were various facts that constituted intentional discrimination and a due process violation. Even if the court assumes that there were violations of equal protection and due process, such violations are not necessary to an election contest. They're kind of saying, yeah, there were some due process. If an election is problematic, there are necessarily other constitutional problems, and so we don't really need to cover that here. Secrecy clause. She says that the mail-in ballot procedure is unconstitutional, also saying latches conclusively bars this challenge because this is the opposite example of that. This is now trying to change the rules after the fact, not change a violation of the rules. Lake could have brought this challenge at any time in the last 30 years, she says. So you don't get to do it here. Incorrect certification. They say if this court invalidates the election, then maybe there would be a claim against Hobbs. But right now, any claim against Hobbs is premature because Hobbs has not been found to be involved in any misconduct. So count 8 has to be dismissed. Count 9 is about an inadequate remedy. The judge says it's probably a remedy here. And counts 10, she says that in Arizona, in Maricopa County, they violated the Constitution. The judge says, nope, that's also dismissed. So, in conclusion, Judge Thompson writes, it is ordered dismissing all counts of Kari Lake's statement of election contest, except for counts 2 and counts 4, chain of custody and malfeasance. Further ordered, prior order about ballot inspections is confirmed. That took place December 20th. And it's further ordered accepting and adopting Maricopa County's recommendation, appointing a constable. Lynn Constable is the court's inspector. Now we have further orders from the court. The court originally allocated 2 days for the trial, but that allocation of time was based on 9 counts. The ruling on the motion to dismiss has reduced the number of remaining counts substantially. Therefore, the trial that starts on Wednesday, the 21st, the original time should be more adequate to accommodate a full hearing on the merits. The compressed time for presentation is not based only on time constraints imposed by the law, but by the parties' expressed desire to leave at least some time to file an appeal before the court's rulings in January. The time allocated means each side will have 5.5 hours available for opening statement, direct exam, cross-exam of opposing witnesses, redirect, and closing argument. 30 minutes deducted from each side's 6 hours for a 15-minute break in the morning and afternoon. It's also further ordered that the parties shall meet and confer to provide the court with the list of witnesses to be called, and opening arguments due by Tuesday at noon. The judge also wants to see any exhibits marked no later than noon. And those are the final orders coming out of the Maricopa County Superior Court case involving Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs. We will, of course, continue to cover this because we are here in Arizona, and here is our law firm, the R&R Law Group. If you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona that is facing criminal charges and they need some help, we have an awesome team. We love to help good people charged with crimes. Visit us online, rrlawaz.com, or call 480-787-0394. We'll continue to cover all of the Arizona stuff, including the developments here. We're going to have a trial. We'll probably hit some of the highlights the day after the trial. I know others are going to be live streaming it and covering it live, but we'll probably consolidate it and just hit the highlights. So all in all, interesting ruling. It's very good news that the motion to dismiss was not granted. Obviously, you'd like to see some more counts stick, but I sort of agree. Some of those were duplicative. The ones that I was very happy to see were left on there. The one in particular was the chain of custody issue. I think that's a huge problem. In criminal law, that's catastrophic to the government's case. We'll see how that holds in Kari Lake's lawsuit, but we'll continue to cover it. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for hitting the like button wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. And so that is it for us on the day. We're going to take a little time to jump into some of those super chats. I think I saw a couple come in, so thank you for those, my friends. But we'll get those queued up here. And I also see some familiar faces in all of the various chats. Shout out to our friends over on Rumble. Oren Hill's over there. Annie, get your guns over there. Vienticus Prime is over there. Michael Swade's talking about my package. Oh, gosh. The package. Yeah. The package just came in. Geo's in the house. Lean's in the house. Playing hookies in the house. Modding down the fort for us. And let's see, we had a couple super chats in here today. Quicks started us off and said ACK. Yeah, ACK is short for acknowledged, like sin or ACK. I haven't heard of that. Sin. What does sin mean? I don't know. Acknowledged? I get the acknowledged thing. It's like confirmed, Roger, something like that, you know, the usual. And thank you, Quicks, for that. Jeff Pearson is here, says the printer and scanner settings are relatively easy to import and export and can be done remotely. The systems are not complicated or secure, evidently. Evidently, they are complicated for our Maricopa County Board of Directors. They can't figure it out, evidently. Onesie-twosie Bill Gates acknowledged it was chaos. Or maybe you're right, Jeff. It's just not complicated, and this stuff was intentional, right? Because it does, in my opinion, it does suppress votes. If you have to go wait in a line, you're going to be less likely to wait in line. And that makes you less likely to vote. If this happened with mail-in ballots, right? If there was, if 50% of the pens that people use to fill out their mail-in ballots suddenly stop working, you think there'd be a problem with that? I certainly do. So if it's working the other direction against another party, why would that not be a big deal? We'll see what the judges say. But we also have some shout outs to our friends. I see Machiavelli's in the YouTube chat. Pete Griswold's over there. No, you're a hooker's over there. Is in the house. Says it's impossible to get a man to understand something about a paycheck. Yeah, I was listening to a good podcast by Naval. And he talks about monthly paychecks really, oftentimes can ensnare people because you're sort of addicted to that monthly hit. All right. And so Holy F My S Stinks is over there. Eve is in the house. I agree. This broadcast is not a very good advertisement for your law firm. Well, what we do here is we talk about things that I think are important. And I always like to, I speak about things that I think are bigger than the show and bigger than the law firm. And I'm hopeful that people will see that we stand for some values here, which are accountability, transparency, and justice. And if we talk about those things here, it's the same things we fight for in our law firm. As every day, we fight to help good people. We preserve the presumption of innocence. We fight for the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. These are things that are essential to our liberty, and we have to fight for them all the time. So that's what we do at our law firm. We also talk about a lot of these same issues here. I'm passionate as hell about it. I understand that sometimes this show will alienate people who don't want to hire our law firm and so on and so forth. But That's the fight we're in. The principals cannot, I'm not going to speak to everybody all the time and sort of be, friendly to I believe in freedom. I believe in the presumption of innocence. And that's what we stand for here. So we're just going to keep on doing it. But all right, my friends, thank you for the good comments and for all of the support out there. I do rely on you for support of our law firm, right? We get a lot of referrals from you guys. It's very rewarding to be able to help people, right? Be able to have fun with you here and to be able to have other people see that we're doing good work at our law firm and being able to help people and sort of, actively working for freedom in both arenas. So thank you for your support. I really do appreciate it. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. I want to thank everybody who is a part of this amazing show. Thank you, everybody, for being here and joining in as we go through these very important topics. Big shout outs to our sponsors over at forpatriots.com. Head on over there. You can use promo code Robert to get 10% off anything in the store. And they are good sponsors of the show. Of course, our law firm as well, which I talked a lot about here at the end of the show. rrlawaz.com, 480-787-0394. We have a mission to help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their cases, but beyond that, in their lives. Thank you very much for your referrals. They do mean the world to us, and we do our very best. We've got an amazing team of people doing great work. Shout outs to the mods who mod down the fort for us. Big thank yous go out to Vienticus Prime. We've got K Bean in the house. Just Cause. We saw Lean. There's Lean. Hello, Lean. We also have Playin' Hooky. She says, thanks, gang, for all that you do. VP was in the house. We've got Ronnie Cole. Zulu comes by from time to time. Geomancy was in the house. He's also on YouTube as well. And we're grateful for you modding down the fort. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going to go over to Locals for an after party to hang out and go through some of the additional comments. If you'd love to come and hang out with us, it's at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're doing some morning live streams for members now. Get up, say hello, check the headlines, see what's going on with show prep. So if you'd like to come hang out with us, we'll be doing that tomorrow morning as well at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Otherwise, my friends, Locals, hang tight. We'll be back with you in about 30 seconds. If you're not joining us, I do hope to see you right back here tomorrow after we take this super chat that just came in, skidding in here from Alex. Thank you, Alex. Alex Davy Duke. He says, Rob, thanks for covering the Canadian truckers protest. Your coverage of the Ottawa City Council meetings was amazing. Should coverage the Emergency Act inquiry results in a month or two from now? In other words, I should cover that. Yeah, what did we even do on the Ottawa stuff? I remember that. I remember those people just being total goofballs and goobers, and I had a lot of fun with that. I mean, fun in the sense that it was horrific, right? As much fun as you can have with a horrific scene. I was so disgusted by that, Alex, that I don't know that you can really have a lot of fun with that. It was watching like our friends and neighbors up north just watch their country just come crumbling apart. And dictator Trudeau and all of these weirdos in the Ottawa City Council were just yucking it up. Very strange ordeal. Very weird. But anyways, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I'm glad that you were there with us. I mean, that was a chaotic coverage story. And yeah, Viva was out there. Remember, Viva was on the streets. Viva was out there. He was frozen, solid, walking around, hanging out with all the truckers. Amazing. Oh, Eddie Oliver. Did I miss a super chat from Eddie? How did that happen? Why wasn't it on my screen, Eddie? This is, oh, there it is. Now it's there. This is the YouTube backend. So I was going to say, how could I miss it? All right. So this one came in from Eddie. Thank you, Eddie. He says, so let me get this straight. You do a segment on how AZ is voting and how AZ voting is a train wreck, immediately followed by a commercial for your R&R law firm in Arizona. What the hell are you doing, Rob? Not trying to do better. I'm trying to squeeze the ads in, baby. I got to get the R&R promos in there. And so I had to squeeze it in there. Yeah, maybe not the ideal segment, to squeeze it in there. But, I expect we'll get some Arizona viewers. People from Arizona will come and watch the Arizona stuff, and so we'll get some Arizona viewers. So I've got to share the R&R stuff in there. But yeah, it's like you got to be careful with your ads. Like, I don't want to do a story about like starving children in Africa and then be like, get your survival food so you don't starve to death, something like that. Right? You don't want to do something like that. You want to be consistent. Otherwise, it might be tacky to play a bunch of food on top of a starving children story, as you can imagine. Eddie Oliver says, thanks. You missed my super chat. You need to read it because, as usual, I berate you, which is, it's deserved. I mean, it's Arizona. We deserve it. And if you're not careful, Eddie, I might just pick up and move right out there to Texas, buy a plot of land right next to your butt. See how that works. We got Alex also said, thanks for the coverage of the Canadian convoys. And yeah, that was a wild story. I hope everybody's doing okay up there. I mean, honestly, everybody who was involved in that, the explosion, it's almost like it's their version of J6, right? I imagine that all of the truckers, all of the convoy freedom protester, truckers are all still reeling from those consequences, just like we're happening here in America. They wanted their own version of it. They're like, wait a minute. Are you serious? We can just do whatever we want now? Oh yeah, we love this national emergency crap. Did they form their own stupid, illegally constituted committee up there? Is that what you're talking about? After the inquiry comes out, have a full report on it. Maybe we will cover it. I'm still mad about that. Thank you, Alex, for sharing that one. And for Eddie and for all of the amazing super chats, my friends. I really am grateful for you all. And we'll leave it there. And we'll come back tomorrow to do it all again. And so until then, I hope you have an amazing, very restful, nice sleep, a beautiful slumber, so that you can wake up energized and refreshed and just spring out of bed, pop into the whole new day. We've got the holidays right around the corner. Maybe some of you are celebrating Hanukkah and others already. But we'll see you back here tomorrow to do it all again, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Locals, I'll be right there in 30 seconds. Everybody else, my friends, have a tremendous evening. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.